Hey hybrids, we're back with another episode of the Coach Michael Sekos Doesn't Know What This Is Called YouTube show. This week I am tapering for my 10K race that I have this weekend. So today I'm going to be doing a light session in the gym, and I'm just going to take you through exactly what I do and some tips and strategies around tapering. What is it? Why you need to do it? What does it even do for a race? As well as some other info about just fatigue management, deloads, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm tapering this week for my upcoming race. Basically, a taper is minimal training for the week of the race to bring down fatigue. When you train hard, and if your training is hard enough to stimulate a positive adaptive response, what that basically means is if your training is hard enough to make you improve, then you will cause some level of fatigue. And the fitter or stronger you are, harder the training sessions need to be to cause that adaptation. Therefore, the more fatiguing they are. Over time, the accumulation of those hard training sessions will cause an amount of fatigue that will mask your ability to perform. So if you're really this good, but you're carrying this much fatigue, you're not really going to show how good you are because you're only going to be able to perform at this level. But if I bring down the fatigue, I have to put a graph on the screen. If I bring down the fatigue, I can really show how good I am because there's no fatigue masking my true potential. Now, the goal of the taper, like I said, is to make sure I'm not carrying any fatigue on race day. I'm able to perform and perform to the best of my capabilities. Again, goal is just to bring down all of that fatigue that I've accumulated. We don't want to accumulate any more fatigue at this point, and we just want to show how good we are, and we want all of those gains to be at their peak with no fatigue masking them. So there are different kinds of fatigue that you can accumulate over the course of your training. There are three types. Peripheral fatigue, which is basically the actual DOMs and fatigue of your muscles after a training session. It's the most common one people relate to. Axial fatigue, which is primarily caused by exercises that load the musculature around your spine or exercises that cause you to carry heavy loads on your spine. That's called axial fatigue. Then there is central fatigue, and this is fatigue of your central nervous system as well as the physiological processes it manages. I'm not going to dive any more into those because, frankly, I don't have all the answers. But those are the three types of fatigue that accumulate to create the overall fatigue sensation that people experience. Now, the purpose of this taper, as I said before, is to bring whatever fatigue all of those three things have or has accrued down. And today, the goal of this session and the goal of all weight training sessions going into a competition for the athletes I coach is not to cause any more fatigue, is really just to keep them fresh, make sure they're primed, and make sure that they are ready to go on the day. And this is the same for both lifting and running. All training sessions in the week of competition are really light and chill. For most of the athletes I train, I'll do a 1 to 2 week taper depending on their experience level and how they've been managing their fatigue over the last few weeks. Running and lifting makes you look more jacked. So I've got one more set of squats, and with the squats today, it's light relative for me. And again, we don't want to accumulate any more fatigue before race day on Sunday. It's important when you do exercises like squats, deadlifts, and all that kind of stuff, understand that the fatigue that these movements carry with them is a lot higher than doing something like a quad extension or a hamstring curl. Because these are compound movements, because they use a lot of the muscles around your spine, central nervous system is utilized a lot, all that kind of stuff, science and shit. It's important when you're tapering, really be cautious of doing movements like this. So the difference between a taper and a deload. Taper is something you only do leading into a competition. It's a decrease in the amount of training that you're doing to allow all of that hard training you've done to come to fruition. Deload is very similar, but it's normally used as part of a longer term training cycle, and you're normally going straight back into training afterwards. You only drop things down for that 1 week, whether it be volume or intensity, before picking it right back up where you left off. When it comes to a taper, you don't really pick right back up where you left off. You then have to build your way back up to getting back to where you were before. A taper will allow for you to see more of your gains, I believe, than a deload will, because a taper is a gradual progression towards a point. Imagine a pyramid and you're gradually building towards that point. A deload is more of just building up and then we're dropping back down. They're not designed specifically to prioritize your performance on a single day. They're just designed to decrease fatigue. Taper designed to have you perform at your fucking peak on a particular day of competition. Other than that, when should you use a taper? Like I said, only when you really got a comp. But when to deload, I do it whenever you feel like it. I think you should do it whenever you feel like it. Or whenever I find my athlete feels like they need it. There's some things I use to kind of guide as to when I feel like they're carrying a lot of fatigue. Are they missing numbers in the gym? Do their legs feel heavy when they run? Are they losing sleep? Have they lost appetite? Are they moody? Do they have a low motivation to train? Are they stressed? All of these things come together and I might be like, you look like or sound like you need a deload. Or in my own training, sometimes I'll come in the gym, things just feel heavy, I feel fucking shit. This week, I'm gonna deload. So I don't have an exact time frame in which to do it. Some people do every 4th week, some people do every 8th, 6th, 7th, whatever. There's all different rules that people use. I don't have a rule. I just get the person to do it when I feel like they need it. And in my own training, I do it when I feel like I need it. The reason why is because I don't want them to deload if it's going to break momentum. If I don't think that person needs a deload, then we're not going to deload. And if we have had weeks of great training, why the fuck am I going to go throw a deload in there? But I'm not about to chuck it in when we've had 4 great weeks of training. We're about to go into a 5th. And I'm just going to be like, no, stop there. No more fun for you. Let's bring things back. So if we can keep pushing it, we will. But if we feel like we need it, we'll throw it in there. Volume or intensity, which one comes down? When tapering, you're going to see a reduction in both. However, there will be a point in time when you taper that you want your volume and intensity to both come to a peak before dropping down. So they're going to come to a really high point. Sometimes it's volume and intensity, sometimes it's just one before you reduce right back down before the race. When it comes to a deload, you don't really have to do any reduction leading into the deload. You just train hard, and then the week of the deload, or whenever it is, however long you do it for, you normally see a reduction in volume or intensity, or both. Depending on where the person is in their training cycle, what they have coming up, how they respond. Some people respond better to less volume. Some people respond better to lower intensity. I will generally figure out which one they need, but it's always going to be dependent on the person. Generally when it comes to weights anyway. When it comes to running, if you're deloading, you'll normally just see a dramatic decrease in the total volume. You can still do some hard runs in that week, but when it comes to lifting, I find some people need a reduction in intensity as well as volume. Many people believe volume is the main predictor of fatigue, and in most cases, I would say that is true. However, there are some people that require that reduction in intensity as well in order to decrease that fatigue too. I just finished doing leg curls and I forgot to record it. But a lot of people think that a deload means, or taper, that they're going to get weaker. It doesn't. You're not going to lose strength. In theory, what it's trying to do is actually make you stronger by decreasing the amount of fatigue you have. Now, one thing that you will find is that maybe in that first week back in training, things don't feel good, but that's okay because everything was there for a reason. You brought things down for a reason to peak and perform on race day or the day you're going to run or the day you're going to lift, whatever it is. Long story short, you're just not going to lose strength in a week of training or a week of going hard. Our body's not that fragile. You might find when you come back to the gym, things feel a little bit more difficult, but you're not necessarily weaker. You may be just detrained a little bit. Maybe things aren't as fresh. The motor pattern isn't as fresh as it was prior to it because you haven't been doing it as repetitively, but for the most part, you're not going to be weaker. The priority is whatever competition you have coming up if you're tapering, and the priority is the following weeks after the deload if you're deloading. I hope you guys got something out of it and learned a little bit more about deloading, tapering, what I'm doing leading into my race and what I do for my athletes. As always, if you have a race coming up or a lifting competition and you need some guidance or help, I have online coaching available to anyone, anywhere in the world. All you got to do is visit my website, coachmichaelsekos.com. There'll be a link in the description. Otherwise, like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube related shit. I'll see you guys next time.